Welcome in, everyone, to Betting Weekly Live. It is Thursday, the 23rd of October, and that means one thing and one thing only, Europa League and Conference League special. I'm delighted to be joined by James Eastham. How are you doing, James? You're looking well.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Really looking forward to the show today. We were talking just off air, weren't we, about how many games we've got. We're back in that period of the season, like we were this time last year, where you've got a full programme of matches in the Europa League and the Conference League on the same night. So we can't cover every single game, or we'd be here until tomorrow, wouldn't we? But we've got a huge number of games that we have covered in some way. And as always, great to have your comments underneath on any games you're interested in, because as we found last season, Steve, often the viewers are better informed on some of these games than we are, aren't we, if they've got a particular interest. So do post your views, opinions and thoughts on any of the matches that you want today.
Like you said, we cannot go through every single game at all. In fact, I did a bit of a piece on for the Instagram today, and I was kind of describing how do I whittle down like from 36 games to actual bets.
Yeah.
I actually, it was about a minute long video, but do follow the Instagram account. I'll put it in the chat there. And for me, I mean, one of the big things is immediately I look at the lines and the goal lines for all the matches. Some always stand out than others, and then I investigate closer. And a bit like you, I do tend to try and stick to the teams that I know the best, the leagues I know the best. I know a lot of leagues, but there are some leagues out there that I'm just not as good on. So play to your strength.
Yeah, exactly. I'm very similar, Steve. I look through the games. Look at the prices as they are straight away on the money line, on the goal line, and see if anything immediately looks a bit unusual, which is an opinion. Obviously, it's a judgment call. And if it does look unusual to me, and I think there may be an opportunity, then dig into it further. But you are right. I think at this stage, when you have this many games and this many teams, it does make sense to not necessarily narrow your focus onto just a small number of teams, but be aware of what you don't know as well. And you can dig into sides you've never watched or don't know a lot about, but there are obviously risks attached to that, especially if you've got two teams in a match and you don't know either of them. So it does pay, I think, at this stage to be selective.
I want to welcome everyone into chat. How are you all doing? Lots of people in already. PlayerCam HD, over 3.5 goals in the Liverpool game was free money yesterday. I want to also thank PlayerCam HD for a wonderful comment he gave us on the one of the live shows recently. Really appreciate that, and appreciate all of you guys, actually. We've had a lot of support this week. We've had a lot of winners this week, which is good. Hopefully we can continue it again. And just going through some notable bets yesterday from the sportsbook, though. And fortunately, the two biggest bets were losers. Tottenham to score in the first half against Monaco. Nearly 80,000 blown on that over two bets. Never really looked like happening, did it? In fact, Vicario, for me, was man of the match there. Monaco actually quite unlucky not to win. But lots of winners in the Liverpool game. The Athletic Bilbao match as well. And an interesting bet in the NBA, $100 on the 76ers live against the Celtics at 30-1. That has netted that particular bet at $3,000. They were down 13 points with 10 minutes left. So they're always out there, those bets, these comebacks. We were just discussing off air. It's been a while since there's been a really high-profile comeback in a soccer game from, say, 3-0 down to 4-3. Maybe that will come tonight or this weekend for a big sensational story. Producer Troy was in action last night. He was getting heavily involved in the Galatasaray-Bodo game, and that was a very profitable one for him. But anyway, we're going to get cracking into the games. We start Europa League, and that's the table so far. There's 6 teams on no points, and we have, 7 teams on maximum point haul so far. The whole aim is to get in that top 24 before the end of the 8-game group stage here in the Europa League. 2 matches, of course, in January. So we start with the early slate here. I am going to start with Brann against Rangers, which I know there's a lot of interest in the game. And for me, I am going to advise a bet here, but I'm being very, very cautious. And I'm going to take Brann on a minus 0.25 handicap at minus 132. I'm just a little bit fearful of the draw, if I'm being honest with you. Rangers are under a new manager, Danny Roll. I just don't know how much of an impact he can make early, straight away, though, James, to be honest with you. He's only had, 2 or 3 days in the job. And, I think it sounds like he's actually not a bad manager. I still think Rangers can probably do better in terms of where they're hiring these guys from. The attraction for that job doesn't seem to be as big as it used to be. But Roll, I think, will be certainly an upgrade on Martin for the style. So I am going to take Brann on the minus a quarter ball handicap. The 79% of tickets on Brann, 61% of the money is on Rangers for the game. I think it might be quite a tight contest. The weather up there on the west coast of Norway is not great today. And it'll be, I think, a physical contest, which Brann might just edge. But I do want a little bit of draw cover. Rangers have been an automatic favourite for a lot of people this season, James. Now there's a manager involved. Are you the sort of fella who will sort of stay away from the games or wait and see how Roll gets on?
Yeah, wait and see, really. I wonder what impact it might have on the players that we had such a long period of time waiting to see who was going to get the job. You know, obviously they were linked with a return for Steven Gerrard. We got the sense that a couple of managers were sounded out and maybe didn't fancy it. So have to wait and see what the players think, because I think sometimes in that situation they think, well, hang on, who have we got as the manager here? Is he really the guy that the club wanted? And let's wait and see. So for that reason, given it's still very, very early in his time in charge, I left this one alone. I thought I'd wait and see how he does in the first few weeks.
Yeah, I think Brann will be buoyed by their win in the previous game day. I backed him in that one against Utrecht. It was a tight game. I think we're going to get something similar again. 2-1, 1-0, maybe, hopefully. I think the minus a quarter ball at minus 132 is a pick from me. It's not one of my best bets today, but I'm still going to take it. John Massey says another Europa League match day to play against the Old Firm. So I'm guessing you're on Brann, John. I actually looked at Sturm Graz +1 in the Celtic fixture. We're not going to talk about that game, but I did look at Sturm Graz +1. But I don't know. I never quite liked betting against Celtic at Celtic Park in Europe, but Champions League to Europa League is maybe a little bit different. Gratza said, fairly sure most people thought Martin was a good fit. Roll was fourth choice, and is he another bad choice? I actually thought Martin might revolutionise them a bit, but it's more to do with not his style. It's just like the man management for Martin. He threw his players under the bus after 2 matches. You can't do that. That was the alarm bells for me. So even though he's fourth choice, maybe his personal man management might be good. He did a really good job with Sheffield Wednesday, actually, considering the mess they've had. So, I'm more confident in Roll than Martin for the fit at Rangers there. I'll come to the Fenerbahce game soon, but go ahead, Eagles against Aston Villa. This is one of your picks of the day, James. Premier League teams have done very, very well in the Champions League this week, and you're going to back another Premier League team to continue that trend.
Yeah, I really fancy Aston Villa to win this and potentially win it quite big. So it is one of my picks on the games today, but the price, I've got to say, has really shortened on Aston Villa. When I looked at this, which was only Tuesday, I think, on the Asian handicap with a -1 goal start, Aston Villa were available at -113. Earlier today, the -1 Asian handicap price on Aston Villa had come into -167. Just before we came on air, Steve, it was into -200. So what that tells you is that Villa have been very heavily favoured this week, and all the market makers have decided that they probably didn't rate Villa as highly as they should have done when they opened the market at the start of the week. I'm still sticking with Villa. I think it's probably fairer, for anybody getting on them now to look at them at -1.25 on the Asian handicap, because that's kind of closer to what I was thinking price-wise. That's -143 now. But the top line for me, Steve, is this should be a Villa win. That's the way I look at it. They obviously started the season poorly. They have improved. So for people who've maybe switched off a little bit and don't follow the Premier League, Villa are going into this on a run of 5 straight wins in all competitions, which kind of kicked off with their first game in this competition, a 1-0 win over Bologna back in September. We're going back almost exactly a month now. And since then, it's just carried on working for them. They've beaten Fulham at home. They've beaten Burnley at home. They've beaten Tottenham away in the Premier League. And they won 2-0 at Feyenoord last time out. And I think that it's useful, isn't it, to see that they won at Feyenoord, because they're playing a Dutch team again here, and one who are not as good as Feyenoord, you have to say. Looking at Go Ahead Eagles, I think they've only won 2 out of 9 in the Dutch league. And they lost at home when they played at home in this competition to FCSB. I think that was match day 1. So it's very difficult for me to see why Villa would not win this game. That's why I thought -1 was a great way to play it on the Asian handicap, because you'd get your stakes back if they just won by a single goal, and then you'd make a profit if they went on to win by 2 or more. As I say, that price change on Villa, it does affect things, because I'm not really in the habit of recommended teams at -200. It's a bit shorter than I would like. So You may want to look at it now at minus 1.25, but generally speaking, I think Villa should be fine here. And, just looking at the comments there, yes, they probably will rotate, I would imagine, a little bit. They have a squad which is just about big enough to do that, I think, Villa. But I think they'll be okay. I think they've got decent quality to back them up against this type of opposition. So, yeah, strong pick from me. Have a look at the price and see what you fancy. But it's about finding a way to get on Aston Villa here, because for me, this should be a pretty straightforward win.
Yeah, and as we've been live on air just now, the minus 1.25 line's been backed even more to minus 129. The minus 1 Asian handicap is at minus 180. There's nothing wrong with that, to be honest with you, because there might be people watching this show for one bet today who are going to place a sizable wager on one team, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at minus 180 whatsoever. You can add them to parlays and stuff. Just a few things from comments which I'm going to go through. The Villa starting 11 is obviously going to be interesting. But I mentioned this with Chelsea last night, that I'm not so worried when the Premier League teams rotate, because their strength and depth is so much, and has hungry players coming in as well. Peter Chalkins, this is another thing I want to mention about the matches in Holland today, in the Netherlands. There is a storm warning. Storm Benjamin is going to the certainly the seaboard of the Netherlands. This match is played more inland, though. The place called Deventer. So I don't think we're going to get such bad conditions as we would for the Feyenoord game and the AZ game, which we'll talk about later. So, but nevertheless, for those who do consider whether it is something to consider. Before I forget, Lewis Dunbar, any thoughts on the Shakhtar game? Well, me and James haven't been looking at it, but Dan Roebuck sent us a message today, didn't he, James? And he said he's going to be on the commentary for this one, by the way. So you might want to watch it for Dan's dulcet tones. But he says, Lecce are in awful form. The rumour is the coach has offered his resignation. He fancied Shakhtar, but this game is being played in Krakow, in Poland. So Lecce are away from home, but they're in the same country. It's a weird one. So he thinks Lecce might have a slight advantage that way, but Lecce are in a bit of a mess. So it's a difficult one, really, in terms of form. I think these Ukrainian teams are starting to struggle with the lack of home advantage. But those were Dan Roebuck's thoughts. I think basically question marks about both sides. So you got to make up your own mind on those sort of ones. Looking through some more comments here. There was a question about Lyon, and that's why we've got them on the front page. Lyon against Basel. I mean, normally I'm automatic overs with Basel this season, James, but Lyon, they're more of an under team now.
They are.
How do you see this one going? Is there any value to be had?
I don't think there is. I think it's a really tough game to call for a couple of reasons on the Lyon side. The first is that they have had a weird season in that they picked up lots of points early in the season without actually playing that well, I thought. And they've sort of regressed to getting the points their performances deserved recently. They lost at Nice last weekend, although they were then a bit unlucky, I felt, to lose that game. So it's a weird one. I don't think the results and their performances have quite aligned yet. And the other factor with Lyon is that different parts of their team have either functioned or not functioned at different times. So they were defensively very solid, I thought, through the first sort of 5 or 6 match days of the season, while struggling up front. Certainly struggled for goals, having sold George Mikhail-Tads on deadline day back in late August, early September. More recently, the defence has struggled. So the weekend they conceded 3 goals against Nice, and they were very self-critical, actually, about their defensive performance. I think what it means is I'm not quite sure what we're going to get here from Lyon. And I'm not sure they know either, because the team is still sort of working out how to get every area of it working on the same day, if you know what I mean. Another factor with Lyon is they've got a fairly small squad, so their chances of rotating are probably not as big as people suspect. If they do rotate, there's a chance of their standard dropping quite considerably. Looking at the team news being predicted by the French media ahead of this game, they think they'll go quite strong here rather than rotating too much, which is interesting. I think that might have a negative knock-on effect for Lyon at the weekend, which we may reference in our European show, which we'll be recording and putting out tomorrow. But looking specifically at tonight, I think there's too many question marks at the moment around Lyon. First of all, how will they play? Which part of the team will play well? And, how tired will the players be if they don't rotate? So, tricky one. Like you, Steve, my instinct on this game when I first went through the prices was to try and look for goals. I think Basel have got a part to play in that. They've had a good season, haven't they? They've won 6 out of 9 in the Swiss league. And they've beaten Stuttgart at home. And although they lost at Freiburg, they scored in that game, I think match day 2. So I think they'll be quietly confident that if not win the game, they can trouble Lyon here. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen. So I did have a look at the goals markets, looking towards overs. But in the end, I just think at the moment, there are too many question marks about Lyon to get involved in this one.
Mike asks, do Lyon have strikers who score? And that's a little bit of a problem, isn't it? Yeah, no is the answer. Like,
they don't. And they've literally got one striker, in my opinion, in Martin Satriano, who you consider a number 9, whose job in the team is almost everything but score, isn't it? I mean, he kind of is there to hold the ball up and run the channels. He's already set one up from dragging him and a marker out wide and then putting the ball back in. So really the idea is for the other players to sort of flood the box when Satriano, if he starts, gets out of the box. It can only take you so far, I think, looking for Tolisso, Malik Fofana on the wing to get among the goals. Good players, but they are unusual in that they're a top 6 side potentially in France without a single player that I would back to score 10 goals in a league season. Very unusual situation at Lyon. And I think that also makes it difficult at the moment to predict exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah, Martin Satriano has scored 10 league goals in the last 5 years. And that's roughly about 80 odd appearances, which kind of shows you how poor he is in front of goal. He did score in the Europa League, actually, against Salzburg, which might give him some confidence. But I would rather have Dominic Calvert-Lewin up front than Martin Satriano. That's how poor Satriano is. And I criticise DCL all the time. So, Byron's got it right. Satriano over 2.5 pitching killers.
Yeah. and correct. And on Byron's point there, just to say, he also flagged up a favourite of mine going back almost 12 months there, Tanner Tessman in midfield. I saw Byron mention there, plus, I think, was it over? Yeah, plus 150. Completely agree with that, Byron. Tessman has been underrated in the shot on target market almost every time he's played for 12 months now. I think it's with Lyon, you sort of have to see on a game-by-game basis exactly how they're setting up on the pitch, but Tessman generally hits the target when he tries to score, so he's always worth a look, I think, in that market.
Satriano anytime's a banker now, isn't it? After what I've said. Just going back to the Villa game, 98% of the money's on Villa, 99% of the tickets. They are really well backed in that game. Just to reiterate James's strong play on Villa today. Now then, yes, the one other game from the early Europas, which I wanted to flag up, Fenerbahce against VfB Stuttgart. I think the goal line's attractive here for the over at minus 141 for over 2.5 goals. Just looks a bit too low. I thought this goal line would be 3.25. I think the reason we can get the generosity here is that in domestic matches, both teams have been going under the goal line at least, and even Stuttgart are on a run of 4 straight matches. Both teams score no, which is rather surprising. I'm going to swim against the tide there. I think in Europe teams play differently. Fenerbahce home games that historically have been pretty wide open, entertaining. We saw the Galatasaray match last night against Bodo Glimt, and it's a similar sort of thing, the fans, the atmosphere. And Stuttgart, for me, still are naturally an attack-minded team. They've lost weapons, yes, but they're still very, very attack-minded, and I think there's enough goals in them. So I'm going to take that over 2.5 goal line here in this game. It's minus 148 now, but I'm still going to take it. I just think it's the line value, really. I thought it would be looking at 3.25 Asian line. Okay. Just looking through some of the comments when I get us back on screen. Stuttgart and over 2.5 plus 255, says Byron again. Yes, I wouldn't put anyone off that. I mean, I don't know which way it would go, that one, actually. Home, away, or draw. I'll say 2-2. Just to have all bases covered.
Yeah, I would agree with you, by the way, very quickly, Steve, on that. I had a long look at the goal line there. Over 2.75, I think, is minus 118 or something like that, which was very tempting. I think it's the only way to play that game, really.
Conference League, early matches as well on the card. This is the table so far. Only one match played. And Drinski are top of the table, so they can have their moment in glory. They beat the Red Imps 5-0 last time out. Still several teams looking for the first point. There was only 2 draws in the first round of the Conference League, which is
Yeah,
I mean, we talk about lack of Champions League draws, lack of draws in the Conference League as well. But we do have some early fixtures to discuss. I'm just going to start that one with AZ Alkmaar against Slovan Bratislava. Now, this is where this Storm Benjamin comes into play. Heavy rain and strong winds going to batter the coast of the Netherlands. The Feyenoord game, I think, is been pushed back now to 8 p.m. There was rumours of it being postponed. But this match, AZ was brought forward. It's going to kick off in about an hour and a half time. And for me, I'm just going to take a stab here at under 3.25 goals at minus 118 because of the conditions. I always have this thing when there's a lot of wind, then the goal line needs to be considered. Slovan Bratislava are not exactly the biggest scorers in the world. They're probably going to come here for a point. Like you, I watched them against Strasbourg, and they managed to get on the scoreboard, didn't they? But that ended 2-1. AZ are known for being an attacking juggernaut. Of course they are. But in these conditions, I will take a flyer at the under 3.25 goal line. No doubt about it whatsoever. Breidablik against KuPS. I put that up there because someone asked me a question on X about it today. Brian M asked me, do I think that Breidablik have got such an advantage in this game compared to normal? Icelandic team against Finnish team, of course. And the answer is no, they won't have as much of an advantage because they, for a start, KuPS are used to these sort of harsh conditions. They're used to the plastic pitch. They haven't got as far to travel. So normally you might look at Breidablik at home and think they might be worth backing. But even money or plus 104, I think I'm happy to leave that game alone. I'll talk about Hacken Vallecano in a minute, but Strasbourg against Jagiellonia Bialystok. James, it wouldn't be a show without one of your picks on a Strasbourg game. They're minus 225 favourites to beat the Polish outfit today. Will they get the win?
They should get the win, but I've just seen Effie's comment up there. Strasbourg over 2.5 team total goals. Well, that might work, but I'm actually going under goals on the game here, Steve. That's my main play on it. I think Strasbourg -1 on the Asian handicap will pull a lot of people in because they've looked very good this season generally, Strasbourg. They're flying, aren't they, really, in League One? Most recent game being a 3-3 draw away to Paris Saint-Germain. And, I was talking to someone earlier today about how rarely they've been outplayed this season, putting the results to one side. I can only think of one game across both League One and Europe where Strasbourg were second best, and it wasn't the PSG game. I thought they were good value for that win, for that draw, the other night. So Strasbourg on the handicap, I think, will pull a lot of people in. But my lean on this, and it is a lean rather than a pick, is on under 3 goals, which is available at minus 125. The reason for that is I think we're going to see Strasbourg play without a real goal scorer here. There's a very good chance of it anyway. Reason for that is they have two brilliant goal scorers in Emmanuel Emega and Panicelli, a player they brought in the summer who's been scoring stacks of goals for them in League One. Emega's out injured, and it looks likely, we'll find out very soon, but it looks likely that Panicelli will rotate onto the bench. Now, if that happens, what it means is Strasbourg are likely to be playing with a false 9, you would say. You could also say without a real striker, actually, because they don't really have a third choice striker to come into the side. Doesn't mean they won't win, and it doesn't mean they won't score any goals, but Emega and Panicelli are by far their top 2 goal scorers. So if I was Jagiellonia looking at this game, I'd just come and be as defensive as I possibly could and think we've got a better chance of holding out for something against a Strasbourg side without Emega and potentially without Panicelli as well than we would if either of those two were in the side. So I don't know if they're going to play that way, the visitors, but I think they should play that way if we've got the team news correct. So I just feel it's one of those games where I can't really see Strasbourg running away with it and winning it, 3 or 4-0. I think that's unlikely without those two in the side. Panicelli is likely to be on the bench, so he's somebody they can bring in if they're struggling for goals all the way through the game. But I just think it's more likely to be a narrow Strasbourg win than a really emphatic one. And we've already seen that from them a little bit anyway, haven't we, in Europe? I mean, it was 2-1 against Slovan Bratislava last time out. So let's see. But yeah, it's a risky one in the sense that Strasbourg have got goals in them. It's to do with the team news and how I think they're going to line up tonight. And I think under 3 goals at minus 129 as a lean is worth a look, because if they are without Emega and Panicelli in the starting lineup, I find it difficult to see why there would be 4 or more goals in this game.
Yeah, I've got a lean for the game as well, actually. It's Strasbourg win to 0 at plus 145 because the handicap is just too high for what I want to get involved with. Minus 1.25 now on the handicap, which wouldn't be a terrible bet. I don't think you'd lose your full stake.
Yeah.
But win to 0 plus 145, I think you're right. For the team news for this match, Strasbourg may be leaning on their defensive strength, and they are good defensively when they want to be. Forget that draw against PSG. That's a completely unique game.
Yeah.
They're good defensively, and this might be 1-0 or 2-0.
Yeah, and I go back as well, Steve. Sorry, I was just going to say, I go back to the Brondby game, which was in the qualifiers, wasn't it? Now, I know they didn't win that game at home. I think it was 0-0 the first leg of their qualifier, but I think the way Brondby played that game was, it would be a lesson to someone like Jagiellonia just to try and be defensive. And if you're playing against a Strasbourg side without maybe one or two of their top goal scorers, you can keep it tight. I think Strasbourg should have a bit more now because they're into the season. So I think a win to 0, it wouldn't surprise me one bit on this match.
Yeah, I think teams should hire you, James, who are playing away against French opposition. You'd give them a game plan. I
agree.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You talked about this with Slovan Bratislava in the previous round. We know how Jagiellonia need to approach it. Are they watching us? Are they listening to us? Let's see what they say. Van City Canut. What about Celtic? I'm seeing a big price for a Sturm Graz win and draw. I said earlier, I was looking at Sturm Graz +1, but I'm not sure about it. I know we have quite a few Celtic fans in chat, or certainly followers of Scottish football. Let us know. Are Celtic opposable today? I'm not sure about it, but it did catch my eye that Sturm Graz were a bigger handicap than I expected. Punter says Jagiellonia losing half its skill away. They haven't played that team in years. I know they're missing a starting keeper, Jagiellonia, for this game, which I think will get Strasbourg over the line, even without the firepower that they've got today. There was one more conference early game I wanted to talk about. Hacken Rayo Vallecano. No, I'm not getting involved in the corners. There was a lot of corner comments. I'm not getting involved in the corners here. I'm not saying I would oppose the corners either, but Becker Hacken are the home team from Sweden here, from Gothenburg. This is not a home game for them on their own stadium anyway. They actually have to play at Gamla Ullevi, which is the home ground of their big city rivals, IFK Gothenburg. And I never liked them at this stadium. They play on a plastic pitch to Hacken, and now they've got to go to a grass stadium with, I guess the rivals of the team across town. And they had to do this before a couple of years ago, and I don't think it worked out that well. I do think Rayo Vallecano are worth backing, though, simply on the money line at minus 108. And the main reason is just I think there's a big gulf in class between the two sides. La Liga is a very, very strong league. For Rayo Vallecano, they should be up for it. You do question some of these teams, the bigger sides, whether they rotate occasionally. But at minus 122 now, they've been backed in. I still think that's a bet on Rayo Vallecano, just because they're far better from a technical soccer perspective. And, it's a bit colder than they would normally be used to. The forecast originally was poor here, but it's improved. So I think Hacken are only, they're lower half of the Swedish Allsvenskan this season. And
it's a big difference.
Yeah, it's not like this is not the Hacken of a couple of years ago that won the league. Yeah. They might raise it because this is all they've got left to play for now. Yeah. This is all they've got left. So I don't think it'll be a walkover by any means, but I think Rayo at minus 122, let's just get, down to basics here. Someone said in chat yesterday, don't overthink bets. And this is one of those where you got a lower half Swedish side against a La Liga team who nearly beat Barcelona the other week.
Yeah, it's not dissimilar, Steve, is it, to the Aston Villa game we touched on earlier, where they're away from home, but against a side from a much smaller league in Go Ahead Eagles, who are struggling in that league. It's similar. Difference being here, you get Rayo Vallecano at close to evens, whereas Aston Villa are obviously short price 5. You know this league a lot better than I do. Certainly the Spanish league below the top two. I know you follow it really closely, so I left this one to you, really. But if you look as well at the Conference League, if we just focus on that competition last season, it is teams from the stronger leagues who get there in the end, isn't it? Chelsea, Fiorentina, we've seen teams like that do really well in it. So it doesn't mean they'll win every game they play from a big league, but there are the matchups where that comment's absolutely right. Don't always, you don't always need to overthink it, do you? Sometimes it is as straightforward in terms of value as it looks.
Nigel says huge match for Celtic on Sunday against Hearts. That's a really good point. That's a massive game in the SPL. I mean, Sturm Graz are a plus 1.25 Asian handicap at minus 109. Definitely would be on my radar for this game. I wouldn't be betting on Celtic, I don't think, even though they're at home. Nigel said if Rotterdam wasn't dull enough, it's being hit by Storm Benjamin. This is where I got John to prepare a specific graphic for this game. Feyenoord Panathinaikos, which has been moved around all day, hasn't it? It was going to be live now while we're on air. And then I don't know what its original time was, and now it's been moved back to 8 p.m. Eastern time because of the weather. This is going to be really strong winds, heavy rain, and I mean, for me, again, an automatic play here with the goal line where it is, under 2.7. Under 3 Asian goals. If I just find my notes, under 3 Asian goals at minus 122. I'm happy to have a piece of that, because I've seen these sort of fixtures before. It can get really difficult for the players, especially as they've been messed around all day. Not sure. We probably won't get a full house now either, will we, as fans? There'll be some fans who won't want to travel for this one. But minus 220 on Feyenoord. I mean, there's a lot of the Dutch people who come in chat are very knowledgeable. And the consensus is that Feyenoord are the best team in the Netherlands this season. So that is, in normal circumstances, I was looking them to actually win this game on a handicap. But does the weather? Are you someone who gets impacted by weather? I sometimes overthink it. I've got a feeling this wouldn't be such a big factor for you, though, James.
Yeah, probably not. What I think is interesting about this game is how late these changes have been. So I tend to look at travel almost a bit more than weather. What I mean by that is you sometimes get teams the away team whose travel is delayed, especially if it's overnight. So they're supposed to fly the day before the game and they end up having to fly the day of the game. I think that can be really disruptive to an away side, because they've got the whole program worked out for the evening when they've arrived wherever they're playing, which involves eating in the hotel and maybe training. Moving it overnight, I think, can be really disruptive, because it means wherever they stay overnight before the game is a last-minute decision and everything changes. This doesn't seem to be that situation. I think there's been no real problems for Panathinaikos in terms of getting to the game. I think this might affect Feyenoord a little bit more, funnily enough, because all these late changes are likely to affect, I think, their fans maybe a bit more. People choosing to stay away who are already over there or who maybe can't get to the game. So it's an interesting one. It's also a very unusual one, isn't it? We don't really see that many kickoffs which are just sort of delayed. Games either tend to be postponed or they don't. So it would, in this instance, be enough to maybe just keep me away from the game altogether. I had a long look at Feyenoord because it's a formidable record that they've got in Holland, isn't it, so far? 8 wins and a draw. Having said that, they have lost their first 2 games in this competition and they've not scored yet. So they do have something still to prove in this tournament. But I think the weather factor here is a real factor, and it would just dissuade me, I think, overall from getting involved in the match.
Peter Charkin says, best bet Feyenoord -1, but he did say you've got to be careful because of the weather. The 1-0 is a possibility. And there's that big game as well, of course, the weekend, as Nigel pointed out on Weekly Live on Tuesday, I think. Feyenoord versus PSV.
Yeah.
She's first and second in the table. So, yeah, this could be the sort of game where it is low scoring, and maybe Panathinaikos, the dog, could cover the handicap. But anyway, and that's also a good point from Peter, by the way. The fans are loyal. They're pretty hardened creatures, aren't they, in Rotterdam? You've got to be. It does get battled on the elements quite a lot. So they probably will get quite a few fans in, but I think a few will stay at home as well. Okay, Europa League late games on the card. Celta Vigo Nice. I'll leave this one with you, James. You've got a bet for us in the northern part of Spain.
Yeah, I do. And this is for anybody out there looking purely for a stats bet on the match yesterday. This would be the one to focus on, because my play on this game is yes in the both teams to score market, which was available at -136. It's now, well, just before we went on air, was -143. But both teams to score yes has been paying out, not for one of these teams, but for both of these teams very, very strongly. So on Celta Vigo, I think it's paid out in their last 10 games in all competitions, which is 10 of the only 11 they've played so far, including both of the games in this competition they've played. They lost, I think, 2-1 at Stuttgart, and they beat PAOK 3-1 at home. So loads and loads of draws as well, we should say, with Celta Vigo. 1-1 has been the most popular scoreline in their matches. That's obviously a BTTS yes selection. So they're the kings, really, of both teams to score yes, I would say, so far in this competition. And Nice, it's a similar story, recently at least anyway. Their last 6 matches have all gone both teams to score yes. And for anybody that's watched them in recent weeks, they've played that way as well. It's not been a fluke. They beat Lyon 3-2 last weekend without playing particularly well, but they were pretty clinical when they got the chances to score. And then at the other end, they made mistakes. So the stats here on both teams are really strong. And I think actually, given how strong the stats are, the price of minus 143 on both teams to score yes is actually a pretty good price. And just finally, away from the stats on Nice, they've improved a little bit. They started the season really poorly. Just before the international break, they drew 2-2 against Monaco, which was a good result against local rivals. And then they've had this 3-2 win against Lyon. Knowing their manager, they won't just go here and try to get a draw. They will try to win it, and they'll try to dominate the ball, and they'll try to get forward. And I read a few of the pre-match quotes from the press conference that Nice gave yesterday, and I don't think they're bluffing. I think they're going to be really positive, because that's how the manager always wants his teams to play, and they feel they've got a bit of momentum now and they want to build on it. So I think the way Nice will play the game will also make both teams to score yes more likely. So I'm pretty strong on this. It's one of my picks today, and I think, as I say, the price of minus 143 on both teams to score yes is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Nice's recent matches, it's very, very hard to argue with that. Celta Vigo, the only team in La Liga without a win this season. They've drawn a lot of matches, and they usually get on the scoreboard as well. Nice are usually a fade in Europe. I mean, we got 72% of the money and 74% of the tickets on Celta Vigo. That's understandable, isn't it, James, based on the match result?
I would say so. I mean, Nice have got a big point to prove this year in Europe, haven't they? They were 35th out of 36 teams in the Europa League table last season. Really poor, and they've not started great this year either. So I think they're taking this game seriously, but they don't have a track record really for anybody to sort of back them on. It's the case, I think, for a lot of people who don't watch Nice closely, of let's wait and see if they can actually perform in this competition, because they haven't shown it, have they, in the last 12 months for sure.
Both teams to score yes. That is James's bet for the game.
Yes.
Wendy starts, says Villa fan, minus 137 for a shot on target. Jake has got an ACCA going here. Villa, Feyenoord, Lille, and AZ. Are Lille going to win, James? You hope so, because it's your newsletter pick this week.
Yeah, I do.
What do you think of them?
Yeah, I think they should win. I tipped them on the newsletter that went out earlier in the week at minus 0.75 on the handicap, which was around minus 130 at the time. They should win. We're fairly confident they will rotate, which is what we've seen them do so far in the competition. But I think the backup players in most positions at Lille are pretty good. The drop-off in difference in standard between the number 1 and number 2 player in a lot of positions is fairly small, certainly against more run-of-the-mill sides, let's say, in Europe. So they should get the job done. They're taking it seriously, this competition. They did well, as people may remember, in the Champions League last year. And I think they feel they've got a chance of doing well here as well. So I think they'll get it won. Wouldn't be surprised if it was a narrow win rather than an emphatic win. And Lille, haven't been great at home generally, actually, performance-wise this season. So a 1-goal margin of victory wouldn't surprise me. But I think backing them minus 0.75 on the Asian handicap does make sense.
Yeah, I thought that made sense as well, actually. I don't think they won't win. Might only win by 1-goal margin, though. So be mindful of the handicaps that you are taking. Malmo, Dinamo, Zagreb. For me, Dinamo, Zagreb are one of the best bets of the day in the Europa League. Someone put it on chat earlier. I can't remember who it was. But I totally agree with that. You can get them at plus 138 with Bet Rivers on the money line. I'm just going to take the Asian handicap line of minus 0.25 at plus 102. So I've got a little bit of draw security, but Malmo have not been playing very well recently at all. And they sacked their manager a few weeks ago. They look a mess in Europe. They don't look bothered about Europe at the moment. They've got to focus on their own domestic league. 3 games left. If they win all 3 games, I think they will be guaranteed third. If they don't finish in the top 3, they're not in Europe, James, unless they win the Swedish Cup in the spring, which is very doable for them. But you don't want to be relying on that if you're Malmo. So it'll be a completely different Malmo in the new year. They'll have a different manager. They'll bring in players. But right now, they're not in a good way. Dinamo Zagreb, sneakily under the radar, 100% record. And a big price here in Sweden. It's not even a tough place to go at the minute. The fans are not even bothered about Malmo. Really bad atmosphere. So for me, one of the best bets of the day there. Nottingham Forest Porto. I can imagine there's a lot of interest in the card here. Forest, it's a proper pick'em game. 1 plus 170 and plus 175. Now you're getting involved in this one, James. A brand new manager at the helm, Sean Dyche. I think I've ever quizzed you about Sean Dyche.
Yes.
What sort of manager is he for you? Seemingly quite. This bet doesn't surprise me, by the way. I thought you might go down this way because you're looking at the goal line. Which way?
I am looking at the goal line. Yeah, Forest versus Porto. I'm going under 2.5 goals here. Just a lean, not one of my picks, but I think under 2.5 goals makes a lot of sense here, and not just because of Sean Dyche, but I'll come on to that. It's available, as we can see there, minus 152. It's quite short, but I think it's still fair enough at that price to take. You may prefer under 2.25 goals, which will be bigger odds. But I think Sean Dyche, first of all, listen, I don't watch anywhere near as much Premier League as you or Nigel or Jack or Lewis. So, he's not a manager I know a huge amount about, but I know enough to know, I think in the short time he's been in charge, the first thing he will have stressed to his players, even if he's not been able to do too much work with them tactically, is we have to concede fewer goals. Yeah, they've conceded too many goals this season. There was obviously criticism of former manager Postecoglou on that front. Not doing enough work, but they were too open under him, and they didn't look organised enough or aggressive enough at the back. I think in the few days that Dyche has been working with the squad, he will have put that message across as clearly as he can. So maybe the tactical work will come later, but in terms of defensive aggression and tenacity, I think we'll see plenty of that in this game, and that should, even on its own, lead to the goal line being lower. The other factor is the Porto manager. Farioli is a manager who, his team have been doing really well and winning games, and he's not against his team going forward and scoring goals, but he certainly knows how to set them up to be difficult to beat as well. So will he be wary of facing a Nottingham Forest side who on paper are still a really good team and now have a new manager? Yeah, maybe a little bit. It might make him change his approach a little bit, and I wouldn't have thought they'd be too expansive going here anyway. So interesting game. Obviously, people waiting to see how Sean Dyche does. I mean, on a lot of metrics and a lot of measurements, these two sides are fairly well matched, I think, in terms of their pure quality. In the outright market at the moment, Porto are plus 800 to win this competition. Forest are plus 1200. Not a great deal between them. They're both in the top 6 in the outright betting. So I just think they'll want to keep their powder dry a little bit, certainly in the case of Porto. And as I say, Sean Dyche isn't a manager who will come into this job and think, I've got to go out there and excite the fans straight away. Far from it. I think his priority will be making sure they do better at what they've been doing badly, and that's mainly defensively. So I think under 2.5 goals is the way to play here. Lots of excitement around the appointment, which I completely understand at Nottingham Forest, and a general feeling, I think, that they are going to improve, but that might be defensively, I think, in the first instance. So I'd certainly go unders here.
I thought you were going to say, I don't watch much Premier League action, but I always watch when Sean Dyche is in the dugout. I watched an early preview of the Premier League show, which is going to be released in about 15 minutes. And Nigel Seeley was in Dreamland with Sean Dyche coming back. I'm with you. I think that's the first thing we're going to see is the defensive structure and rigidity come back into Nottingham Forest. That's why 58% of the money is on the under in this game. Interesting split of tickets though on the money line. 85% of the money's on Porto, 66% of the tickets on Nottingham Forest. I don't know about money line either way. At 1-0 Forest wouldn't surprise me. There's a suggestion Porto are not as focused on the Europa League as they are domestic measures. Both teams score no in 8 of the last 10 Porto fixtures, by the way, in all competitions. They don't concede many goals. And this manager has a history of unders. Remember him at Nice, certainly the first half of that season at Nice. What was it? Yes. Stupid, wasn't it?
That's
23
crazy,
out of 27 under 2.5?
Something like that, yeah. And was very good at getting the team defensively organised. Those stats on unders when he was at Nice were no fluke. So he's got it. He's got it in his locker at all times, I think, Farioli, to make his teams difficult to break down.
Conference League late games. We have got. Where should we start here? I'm going to start as the Lincoln Red Imps game against Lech Poznan. Very quickly here, I'm taking the -2 Asian line on the Polish team Lech Poznan. There's not much really to say apart from it's a huge mismatch. Lincoln Red Imps from Gibraltar, the worst side in the competition, really. Let's be honest. And the Polish champions, Lech Poznan, should be comfortably dealing with them. 2-0, I think, would be a bare minimum, but they're probably going to get 3 or 4 here. They had a very good win the first round against Rapid Vienna. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, Zrinski from Bosnia beat them, Red Imps 5-0. They're out of their depth at this level. -2 Asian handicap for me on Lech Poznan is a clear bet for the late games. You've got a bet on the Hamrun Spartans against Lausanne-Sport. We're really scraping the barrel in terms of the leagues here. Tell us about these two teams, James, and tell us the pick.
Yeah, well, it's a lean rather than a full pick, but I have a sneaking suspicion that Lausanne are slightly underrated here. They're -162, as you can see there on the money line. But they've improved. They started the season badly, and I just get a feeling some of this price builds in how badly they started the season. They're unbeaten going into this game in 5 matches, Lausanne. Includes a 5-0 win at home to Young Boys in the Swiss Super League. And they won 3-0 against Breidablik at home in this competition as well. So plenty of decent form there. A couple of draws as well. Sion, Lugano, Luzerne, they've drawn. Read some of the quotes from the manager before the match. He was being slightly guarded in what he said, but you got the sense that he feels his team have improved, as the results would suggest. So I'd be surprised if they didn't get the win here. They're playing a side who are notably weaker than them and from a weaker league. And the type of team who I think Lausanne at the moment, given how they've played against better sides in the Swiss League recently, and given how emphatically they beat Breidablik last time out, I think they should get the win here. So I just looked at that price of -162, and it does open up the chance to back Lausanne on the Asian handicap with a -0.75 goal start at available at -134. I think that's not bad because I think they should have enough here to get the win. So it's just a lean really rather than a pick, but I'm expecting them to get the points.
Just got one lean here, James, but I forgot about in the Lille fixture.
Yes.
Lille against PAOK, and you're going to take a player over 1.5 shots.
Yes,
tell
I
us
am.
about him.
Yeah, I should have added this in earlier, Steve, but I was still thinking about this, but I think it's worth doing. Hamza Igman is the player, and he's available at +215 to have over 1.5 shots on target. So again, for people who haven't been following Lille that closely this season, Olivier Giroud is one of their star signings of the summer. We all know him. Of course, he's been leading the line for Lille as the number 9 and playing pretty well. The number 2 striker that they brought in is Hamza Igman, who has been excellent when he's played, both off the bench in League One generally and also in this competition. He looks really lively. He's a good footballer generally, as well as a good striker. He's very direct in front of goal. I think it won't be long before he starts to get games from the start in League One as well, because he's almost playing too well off the bench for the manager, Bruno Genesio, to keep overlooking him. So 2 really good strikers at Lille. It's very likely Olivier Giroud will rotate onto the bench here because he obviously is of an age now where he'll be rested for the midweek games if he's played at the weekend, as he did last weekend. So I think Igman will come into the side here. And I think, he's available at, I think it's +200 or +210 to have over 1.5 shots on target. If he starts the game, he'll have a point to prove because he's gunning really for a starting place in the side, and he's looked very sharp indeed. So it's a big difference, I should say, between the price on Egerman over 0.5 shots on target. I think that's something like minus 200, over 1.5 shots on target at much bigger odds of plus 200. I think is worth taking because that's how good he's looked. So again, it's just a lean, but if you're looking for a player shot on target pick across the games tonight, that would be the one I would go for.
Hamza Igamane, yeah, over 1.5 shots on target, plus 205. He's plus 185 to score any time for those interested. Apologies there was a slight sound issue. I was on mute for a little bit, so don't adjust your sets. It was my end problem. Before we finish the Mainz game, I've got nothing in that. There were some questions from chat about from Peter. Quick thoughts on Freiburg, Utrecht, and Bologna against FCSB. I mean, normally I'm on the overs with Freiburg, but I watched their game at the weekend, and I'm not sure they're going to continue being overs. Big problem with Utrecht; they don't score enough goals. So for me, it was a no-bet game. And Bologna, the same sort of team. I would say Bologna or FCSB more likely unders. Fiorentina, there was a question about them as well. Who have they got tonight, James? I did look at the game, but it didn't interest me. No. They are playing against Rapid Vienna away. I think it's not an easy place to go.
It's not an easy place to go. And Steve, honestly, anybody that's been watching Fiorentina recently, do you know what you're going to get from them? Struggling to win games. Then they'll play quite well for a period against AC Milan, who are obviously a good team, and then they'll play poorly against other teams. Very difficult to read at the moment, Fiorentina. So I looked at that game very briefly because I thought I'm not really prepared at the moment to get involved in a Fiorentina match.
No, I think they were a lot better against AC Milan, but I can't trust them against Rapid Vienna away from home. One other fixture, Crystal Palace, AK Larnaca. Palace a huge favourite in this game, James. I'm not going to bet on it, and I don't think you've got a bet on it either. But let us know your thoughts. What do you think is, if you had to have a free $50 bet on the game, which direction would you go?
If I had to, I'd go on over goals here. So obviously the line there on the screen is set very high on over 3.5 goals. Over 2.75 goals is minus 157. That would be where I would go if I had to, but I'm not really sure yet about Palace in Europe. On the Asian handicap, they're -2 at around evens, actually minus 124 to win the game. So the market is expecting a comfortable Palace win. And they're up against a Larnaca side who, that had that huge win, didn't they? On the first match day, they won 4-0 against AZ, which was partly influenced by an early red card in that game, which made it a lot easier for them. But if you've won 4-0, I think they'll come here and they'll be fairly confident. That's why, maybe not confident of winning, but confident they can cause them problems. So could they get on the score sheet? Yeah, maybe they can get on the score sheet as the away side. That's why I would really lean towards the goals rather than Palace winning emphatically. But the thing about Palace in this competition, Steve, it's a difficult one because they're clear favourites to win it in the outright market. They're plus 300. And we don't yet really know how they're going to fare in it because it's all new to them. So they've obviously got the talent to justify that price. But at the moment, I'm kind of waiting and seeing how they do.
I think Oliver Glasner will take this competition very seriously in the spring. But this week they've got Arsenal away coming up. I just think they might have half an eye on that. AK Larnaca or Arsenal. There's a good chance they might overlook AK Larnaca. I've seen a few of their games actually, and they're quite a plucky team. They'll give it a go. So I'm kind of with you. There might be a few goals here. They would love to score, wouldn't they, for the away fans?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Betting Weekly newsletter, please do sign up for free. The Insider will be heading your way in the inbox tomorrow afternoon, UK time, around lunchtime in the US. So please sign up for free there. Keep hitting that like button. Keep hitting that subscribe button. Watch the Betting Weekly US show later, 5 p.m. Eastern time with Mike and Doug. But from this edition, what's your best bet of the day, best two bets of the day, James?
Yeah, best bet of the day is that Aston Villa bet, -1 on the Asian handicap, even though it's a short price. But I'm almost equally confident with my second and only other pick of the day, which is that Celta Vigo versus Nice, both teams to score. Yes.
I'm really liking Dinamo Zagreb at Malmo today, minus a quarter of a ball. I like Lech Poznan -2 on the Asian line, and the over in the early kickoff. Fenerbahce in action there, over 2.5 goals in that game. I think makes a lot of sense against Stuttgart, and I'm taking those unders in the storm-affected games. So let's hope the weather serves him well. But James, it was a pleasure as always. Thanks
Great
so
fun,
much.
Steve. Thank you very
Premier
much.
League show out in 5 minutes. Do watch that as well. An extra
Yeah.
time in about 24 hours' time. Take care, everyone. Gamble responsibly. And I'll see you tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live. Goodbye.